Burgess here with Music Marketing TV. Tonight we're jumping into ZeroBox with Xhun audio, and we're going to be making some bass lines with this thing. So it's going to be mostly just making some music here, and let's just see the synth from that perspective. It's not going to be a let's dive into every little thing and talk about what they all do. So whenever I get a synth like this, let's first get down a drum line. So just to give you an idea, it is a 303 emulator. The company will never say this. You know what it's trying to emulate. And it does a freaking dang good job. So if we go ahead and just dig through some presets real quick, just to give you a taste, because we need to throw down some drums before I really start going. So those are some of the presets. So when you work with a synth like this, I'm always torn between going with the internal sequencer and just sequencing the MIDI on my own. Because a lot of times when you're writing, it makes more sense to have total control over the MIDI. And there is that ability with ZeroBox. So first off, let's get some drums going here. So I'm probably going to skip forward. I'm just going to get some like classic, kick snare hat thing going on. Just something we can put underneath for like an acid style bass line. Okay, so I've just whipped up a very basic drum loop, like super basic. And even on the hat here, we might even go even shorter. And then occasionally we might have a little a flare in here on the hat. We add in a couple shorter notes just to sort of fill the groove in a touch. And we'll go ahead, we'll take that pattern and put it over here as well. Okay, so cool. So with drums taken care of, let's dive over to ZeroBox. So there's first, how do you interact with this? What way do we want to interact with it? So let's start off with the MIDI interaction first. So there's this whole sequencer side of it that we're going to get to after. But first, I just want to show you kind of some things you can do without that. So over here, you've got this mode. And you've got a pitched mode, which means that when you play notes, it'll change the pitch of the sequence. So I'm changing the notes there. I'm pushing. There's no keyboard visualization here, so but I'm pushing different notes. We've got a scene mode. This is key trigger mode. So there's these different scenes, so you can have multiple sequences on the same sound patch. And so this is what that is. And then you can tell it where to look. So this is going to look between C4 and G4 for the scenes. And then there's off. So this is MIDI mode, essentially. So here, what we're going to do is we're going to use the MIDI, and we're going to treat the MIDI just like a 16th note step sequencer. So I'm going to pull one in here. Now, that it is length sensitive. This is actually really great. But let's really quick go ahead and fill these in. I like to start off with just, classic every single note type deal. And the different MIDI ranges or velocity ranges control what happens with the MIDI. So let's just slap this down and we'll have it go 4 times. And then for now, we don't need this second half. It's the same thing. So if we go down lower, and then there's specific ranges. If you look in the manual, you can find them. But say that we had a note that was overlapping. And let's take one down an octave. And we'll take this one up an octave. And we'll make this one a minor third. And we'll make this one here a fifth. I don't know. Why not? Make something more interesting. And then let's see if we can find here. So there are 2 triggers we're really concerned with. So there's the accent, and then there's the slide, and then there's one that's both a slide and an accent. So on this first one, let's see if we can get those. So I'm going to make these velocities a bit bigger so it's easier to manipulate them because they're kind of in tight ranges. So there's our accent. And then I don't believe there's anything lower. It's all kind of up here in this top range. And there is a slide as well. Let's bring the accent way up so the accent's just like totally overdone when it is accented. And let's take the slide time, which is right here. And this is already pretty long, so that's fine. And let's have a couple more slides. Something like that. with a longer one. So you're able to adjust it like this. So very, very quick. Let's take this down an octave. So, okay, this is where we start to dive a little bit into sort of the fun details here. So I really like the MIDI mode. You saw it's very, very easy to set up and use, and it's easy to copy and paste MIDI and move it around. So the sequencer mode is really, really cool, but I almost never use it. And any synth that emulates a 303, I rarely grab the sequencer if I have a MIDI option. Yeah, so here we go. One of the things that we can start messing with immediately is we could change this accent, the envelope mod time, and then we've also got this decay slider. So say we want it to be a lot more bitey, we can bring this down, and there's a minimum setting. So if we bring this down as well, it will be like super tight. We could take these, make them quite a bit shorter. So here we've got this min slider, and this sort of like sets a range so that it can't be, so that when you make this low, you know, it can only go so low. So we can go ahead and bring this up and sort of like limit it a little bit. Versus. Hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of what's going on here. We've got some resonance and a modulating envelope here. And then of course the cutoff. Okay, so from there, so this is the basics of where you're going to be messing with your sound. And you're probably going to want to automate a few of these things over time, you know, open them up, close them down, that sort of a deal. We'll take a look at that here. But I also want to take a quick look at the effects, because the effects sound really good. We've got here, so this is your sort of space effects. You've got a delay and a reverb here. So we could have a reverb on it instead. I'm going to leave this off for now, just for a second. Typically, right, at least usually you hear a delay. I think is the more common effect with this sort of a thing. And then over here, we've got our distortions, flangers, choruses, that sort of a deal. These can sound just incredible. So if we take these off. Here's the chorus. Turn it on. Yeah, this always throws me. It's on when the red light's on, even though it's got like bypass written next to it. It's that's just a touch confusing to me. But yeah, so this is when it's on. This is off. So just so you know. And there's like a second thing here that doesn't like change color. I don't know. I don't know what the design thought process was for this, but just so you know, that's how it works. So anyways, these sound really, really good. So now that we've sort of gone through a few of these, let's really quick just hit up a few presets here. Now it is going to change the mode. Most of these things are in the pitch mode. So let's go ahead and just, well, let's just get rid of these for now. I'm going to actually take them to the clipboard just so we can hear a few of these presets so you get some ideas of what's possible here. Another control you're going to want to know about, especially if you plan to use the sequences, is the external tempo. So there's an internal tempo control built in. And a lot of times, you know, if you have this open in a DAW, you want it to go with your tempo. So you're going to want that control on. Okay, so that gives you some ideas of what's possible here. Let's go for a sequencer bass and lead preset here. We'll go for electro mesh tones. Yeah, that one sounds like a nice one we could start with. So we'll put our stuff back. And let's go over here. Let's make a rising bass line that moves forward, and then we'll add some variations that's sort of unique to MIDI, and then we'll go from there. I'm also going to go back to just one of these and just go over to the off mode. I like these sounds more in general. Yeah, there we go. No reason to reinvent the wheel. Might as well start from somewhere that I already kind of want to start from. So, okay, there we go. We're in off. So we're in MIDI mode. So the first thing I'm going to do is let's bring down the decay and the cutoff and the resonance. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to automate these. And I don't know how they did this. This is incredible. I can right click and the FL Studio context menu shows up. I don't know how they did this. I don't know if this is something FL has now added that it can do it, or if this is I don't know. I just updated, but you used to have to go through this crazy process to automate things. But I can literally just right click it and hit A now, and it automates. So this is amazing. If you're not an FL user, then you know what, it's kind of like, oh, what's so amazing about that? It's freaking incredible is what it is. It's so much faster. So anyways, yeah, we've automated the cutoff. So cutoff's opening on up. That's great. Let's bring the resonance down. We'll bring this up as well, and we'll have it sit. Now this is going to be something where the cutoff, you generally don't want to bring it all the way up. Because the resonance is going to move from that cutoff. And so we probably want to hit the cutoff somewhere closer to here. Maybe have it be a little bit more logarithmic in how it opens up. So very, very nice. And then the decay, maybe we open that up as well. You see how fast this is? I can just right click and hit A. Holy crap, man. This is amazing. And then here, let's take a look at this. So I like these repeating patterns. Let's just make it a little bit different on one of them, right? So let's go for pattern 4. Maybe we have it go up an octave, and this is a G instead, and this is a E flat. Why not? Just a little bit different on that one. And then on this one, maybe we make this one a smidge different. Let's take these notes. I'm just sort of doing this randomly. Not that, yeah, that one will be fine. No, not that one. We're going to keep that down. So we still have this going on. Maybe we have it hit earlier and take that away. We'll lengthen some of these out. I don't know. Let's try it out. I mean, there you go. It's that fast and that easy, and it just sounds great out the box. So this is my preferred method of working with ZeroBox. The MIDI way to me is just the best. But let's go ahead and take a look now at a sequencer-based workflow. So I'm going to take this, move this over here. We'll put a highlight over here so the playhead just moves over there. We'll add another ZeroBox, and we'll even put it on like a separate pattern. So ZeroBox. Now, the most obvious one, right, is let's just go to like some random preset. Acid line B. Sounds great. We could toss down a note. Have it play through. And just stick it down, and then if you want, you can, and maybe we have it be different there, and then right there, and then boom, maybe that's what we want. And this is the pitched workflow. And then right there, you can hear the tempo's off. Chances are, yep, external tempo is not on. So we're gonna go ahead and toggle that on so it's synced up with the DAW. And then here we could do things like open up the cutoff and the resonance once more. And it's set them very high automatically. Interesting. And let's have the resonance open up over time. We'll have the cutoff already kind of where we want it. Now let's say, okay, this is nice. What if I want to use a sequencer-based workflow where I used the scenes using the key trigger mode? Like, okay, we could try that out too. Let's open up another one. Why not? We'll keep them all here. We'll have just one project with every version there. So on this one, let's find a nice preset. I'm just gonna go sort of randomly. Oh, very nice. Also, I tend to favor heavily the sawtooth, the reverse saw, over, you know, the pulse. Or is this a reverse saw? I mean, a saw wave would go ramp up and then down. So yeah, this would be a reverse saw. It's not a big deal. It's just a name. But I tend to favor the sawtooth over the pulse. I just like it a little bit more. But this one actually has a nice pulse sound to it. Let's try out a different distortion. Let's go for the not solid distortion. We're already on that one. Let's go for some feedback. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Okay, so for this, we're also going to change it from the pitched mode to the keyboard trigger mode. And let's create a new pattern and put down our note here. And we'll come in here and we'll call this one, you know, key trigger mode. This will be our Midi. And this one will be our pitched. All right, with this setup, just a quick note, these ranges, there are negative octaves in Midi. And this causes these ranges to not necessarily be what they say they are, depending on how your DAW deals with these. So in this particular case, it says C4 to G4, but I'm actually off by an octave. It'll trigger those different sequences based on C5 to G5. And this is just for FL Studio. So your DAW may vary. It just depends. So you might have to hunt a little bit and just be aware of the offset that occurs. And you can also set these for different ranges if you want. So I'm going to leave this right here. There's 8 scenes in total. We're only going to use 4 of them. I'll have one here, one here, one here. We'll just have them all be different. So now if we just play this pattern. They're all exactly the same. And you can see here the scenes are changing. So let's go back to our first scene. Now, what's nice is when you play a scene, it'll actually automatically go to that scene. So there we are in scene A. Let's take away some notes here. Just sort of randomly taking away notes. This is not necessarily the best way to do it. And you have here these octave. That's what the O, I believe, stands for. Octave, and then you have slide. So this is going to be a slide note. So if we do have this note on, it should slide to it. And green is up an octave. Nothing is at the octave you expect it to be. And then down is down an octave. So you hear it there. I actually really kind of liked that begin riff thing. It's kind of cool. But maybe not 2 times in a row level cool. So let's go over to our next phrase here. So this is going to be the next one. What am I doing this back and forth nonsense? Let's move this over here and this over here so we don't have to keep doing that. Okay, so this is scene B. For this one, let's leave 12. This is probably okay at the beginning here. Let's gate this out. Why not? That's what the G is. And then we'll accent this note just for fun. And here we can also, you know, maybe do something like that. So we've got our up an octave move. This one, our third one, let's take this up an octave just to sort of vary it a bit, and we'll accent it and leave the rest alone. We don't need to do major changes. And then here, maybe we go with our original pattern, and then we'll loop back to our first scene. And then here also our tempo needs to be set so that we're using the DAW's tempo. And then in context, and now I want to show you something specifically with FL. This may vary depending on your DAW. In FL, you can automate things like I have been doing here. You can also automate things within the pattern. And since we're using an internal sequencer, it kind of makes sense to keep the sequence with the pattern. So let me show you an alternative workflow that's possible. That's honestly really cool. Okay, so for this hybrid workflow, what we're gonna do is you can actually have a mix of a sort of, it's like a scene workflow mixed with a pitched workflow. So we're gonna leave it in pitched mode. Let's find just a nice preset here. So we've got a pitched acid funk. Why not? We're going to extend this pattern out, and we're gonna write in the same pattern 4 times. But let's say we want to take advantage of the pitch, but have the sequences be slightly different. Totally possible, at least in FL Studio. It might be a bit different in other DAWs. Let's take these down an octave, and let's make this one a G. So right now, it's just, the same thing, except the G is a different note. And we need to turn on the external tempo sync. Maybe we want to do something like that, and it's kind of a pain to do another way. This is really nice. But let's say we want this one here to be a different scene, a different sequence. But you don't want to open up a new ZeroBox, but you want to use the internal sequencer. You don't want to use Midi. So there's a way to do this. It sounds like a real specific thing, but when you're working with sequences, this comes up more often than you might think. So FL Studio actually has the ability to edit the events in the piano roll and package them with the patterns. So you can do this with just regular automation, but this is just so elegant. I wanted to share it. So let's say that we want to accent this note and turn off the accent on this note on this particular pattern. Well, I can right click on it and go to edit events in piano roll. And I can go ahead and turn that accent on here and have it off everywhere else. And I can right click on this one, edit events in piano roll. And on this one, I could have it off here and have it on everywhere else. And now this is on everywhere else and off. And when we push play, we'll see them turn on and off. So you can see it's switched here. Let's go ahead. Let's do something like, let's just make a whole bunch of things accented on one. So this is another way. It's sort of like you're drawing in the sequence yourself. So we'll have the accent turn on after this. We will have the accent turn on after this, and it's an on-off thing. So I believe it's if you're just above 50%, it'll work. And let's create an automation clip. Oh, whoops. We didn't want to create an automation clip. We wanted to edit events in piano roll. Yeah. So we didn't want one of those. That's not what we wanted. So now, and here, maybe we want to move the pitch around. You can do that. Maybe we want to gate something. So maybe we want these first 2 notes off there. So we could go ahead and say, hey, these 2 will be off. We'll have them on here and here. But for this, we'll have this off. And then we'll edit the events in the piano roll for this one. On. And then on this one, we'll have it just be off. And you've got this sort of hybrid workflow where you can make specific patterns, but take advantage of the pitch. Because now let's say I want to keep this sequence, but I want to change the pitch. It's as easy as literally just changing the note. So this is a really nice way to do things as well. It's super convenient. And as you saw, it's just as simple as just drawing the pattern in. And this, as you can see here, is actually attached to the pattern. So if I move this around, this information will follow this pattern. Whereas over here, I could move this around and instead the automation is separate. So if I wanted this automation to be on another pattern, I could literally just copy paste it and move it over, assuming I'm using the same instance of ZeroBox. If I'm using a different instance, that won't work at all. But there are 4 workflows for working with ZeroBox. It sounds amazing. It's super easy to work with. Huge variety of workflows are possible. Effects are great. If we come over here, so at the beginning, we have this Midi option, which is the one I favor. So you just have so many options there. So I really like this one. We've got over here, I forgot what this was, the pitched workflow. We've got our scene trigger workflow. It's called key trigger. If you look in here, it'll say key trigger. It'll have like a K there, but I just think in terms of scenes. It's labeled scenes over here. And then over here, we've got this hybrid workflow where it's basically a scene trigger, but it's done with the pitched mode instead. And there's no reason you couldn't mix automation into this as well. Like we could have the cutoff moving around and the resonance coming up over time. And doing things like that as well. But there you go. There's some options for you. Great synth. Check it out. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below. Subscribe and hit that bell icon for future videos. And have a blessed day.